Yeah.
Excellent.
Welcome in, those just joining. Glad you're here.
Well, welcome.
Hey, so,
welcome
Captain,
to another
we
day.
missed you. We missed you last week.
Oh, really? What happened last week?
Well, we still got to learn from you, which was pretty great. I really appreciated that.
Oh, good deal. Yeah, I had a great conversation with Colleen. So
Yeah.
I hope everyone enjoyed it as much as I did.
Yeah, it was really good. I felt so challenged about the check-ins and was thinking about different ways to practice them. I was in a conversation with my sister about a family vacation, which is what you guys were talking about. And I was saying like, hey, we should do this together on our family vacations when it gets dicey. And she was like, actually, I'm kind of afraid to do that. She's like, sometimes I'm so attuned to what other people are feeling that I don't know, what I'm feeling. So we had a whole discussion about that. Really interesting.
That's good. I probably should have used that more on my family vacation. I tend to just walk away when things get heated because it just goes nowhere. But that could have been helpful.
Yeah, both ends. Sometimes you got to walk away.
Yeah, I walk away from my own sense of like trying to understand how am I feeling in this moment. So maybe I'm kind of doing a check-in with myself in that.
Yeah.
So,
it's been helpful. I had a day when I was just feeling kind of down, and it really helped me to check in, like just by myself, and then to articulate that to the people I was around that day. Like, hey, I'm feeling kind of tender, just so you know. They gave me a little extra grace for an hour or so.
That's good. Yeah, this is definitely one discipline I need to practice a lot more. I feel like I've been on this whole journey. Well, really since getting married and even before, but trying to understand my own emotions, where am I at, and like naming different things that's happening for me. So I like the practice, and I think I need to just continue to have my own little self check-ins and just to understand how I'm doing and where I'm at and what's happening and what's going on in my head and all that. Yeah. Cool. Well, I hope everybody enjoyed it throughout the week and with their rooted friends, able to get some time to check in with them and sort of practice that. Even in small groups, I know some small groups I heard were able to practice that, checking in with each other. It's really helpful to know like where people are at when you're coming together. So, Judi, how are you feeling today?
Oh, thanks for asking. I'm checking in as feeling kind of relieved today. My kids started camp, and it was the first day they've been gone from this house without me since pandemic started. And I could feel there's space to not have to keep switching hats. And I felt really relieved about that. I'm still kind of floating from it. Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. How about you? How are you checking in today?
Let's see. I'm checking in as someone who just had some good rest and feel like this is a helpful start of a new week. And so I'm feeling ready. I'm feeling like I'm sort of grounding myself again after being away for a while. So, we actually came back late Friday night. And so I had some time on Saturday to hang out with some friends, and Sunday hung out with some friends. So like that was really great. Start seeing people again. And now I feel like I have a lot more energy to like do some work this week. I'm going to write some newsletters and thank you cards and things like that. And, administration work is not a joy for me. So I'm feeling good going into that now. So.
Yeah, that was smart. People say like, I need a vacation from my vacation. So smart to come back and give yourself a little room to unpack and make sure you have food, rest a little bit.
Well, that often happens with vacations with my family. I need another vacation afterwards. So.
Yeah, so keep checking in. Keep checking in this week.
Yep, definitely.
How about others? I think we'd love to hear if other folks tried checking in. And I'm going to remove our spotlight. So if anybody else wants to share, you can unmute and share a little bit about if you tried checking in and how it felt for you. Or if you prefer to type in the chat, that's okay too. So we'll be quiet for a minute. Okay, it looks like maybe some people might be typing in the chat to share, but you can also share, like, let's be real in this community, right? So it is entirely possible that you forgot to check in and you forgot that that was even a tool we talked about until this moment. That's okay too. You can share about that.
Yeah, and also, see, Kate says checking in has helped her because often she just keeps moving and doesn't think about her feelings, but slowing down is hard to do. Sometimes kind of hurts too. Yeah, I think that the concept of a check-in, it's like overly simple. So like, I feel like I have nothing significant to share, but like, I find it like being really helpful to just sort of notice and recognize, like, how am I feeling? Like simple little thing like that. And even, starting conversations or starting meetings with that. I know Colleen, that's her thing. She always she starts her small group meetings. Is everybody check in? How are you checking in today? It seems overly simple, and like sometimes I feel like, oh, this is just silly, but like afterwards I'm always like, oh, it's really helpful. One, for myself, noticing how I'm doing, and two, hearing from other people how they're doing. So I don't know.
Yeah, I feel that way too. I get kind of flustered though, like when I check in, then I'm like, oh, but I didn't tell you about all these other ways I'm feeling or things that happened for me. But it's still really helpful to name like that one piece, right? And that like, that about me, about my day, that I am, aware of it, and that we can hold it up to God too, and trust that God sees and knows it with us.
Yeah, and for me, it's like naming what's that one strongest feeling, and like how that might be affecting me as I'm coming into a relationship or a conversation or a group thing or something.
Yeah. Hey, Josh is sharing that they use the feelings wheel. That feelings wheel is awesome. I'm assuming that link is to the wheel with like a million feelings. Some people hate it because they're like, it's too much. I can't pick one.
It is overwhelming, but it really helps me to I can then pick a word and not quite angry. Let's drop a little bit, so it's helpful to find words to name emotions.
Yes. It's also really helpful after an intense interaction, right? That might be like a fight, or it might be like a group project, or, some kind of tense conversation, to pull out the wheel and be like, let's just name how we're feeling right now. Where are you identifying yourself? And having someone else put the words out there feels very hospitable.
Yeah, and Josh dropped the link there. Thanks for that. It's just feelingswheel.com. I actually didn't click on it yet, so I don't even know what's there, but I know what the feelings wheel looks like. So, yep, feelingswheel.com.
Josh, we're just giving you all our trust that that's like a legit good feelings wheel. Yep. It's not just like an anger wheel.
Yep, it's just the image. I just looked at it. It's all color coded and everything. So it's real nice. Great. And John is back with us. He said he lost power. Hopefully we all don't lose power here.
Yeah.
Tonight. A little windy and rainy, so.
Yeah, well, feel free if you guys have more thoughts about how checking in has been helpful to you, or how you want to try it this week. There was another tool also that we posted on Instagram, the Daily Examine, that some of you might have tried. If you want to share about that, you can unmute or type in the chat. We would love to hear about it. And it always helps reinforce for me, like, oh yeah, this is good. I should keep doing this when I know other people are doing it too.
Yeah, that's a good one too. Actually, my wife and I do that every night before going to bed. We just say, how did you see God today? Like, that's our simple little thing. I have to admit, she is much more disciplined than I am. So it's always her thing. And oh, this is a great way for us to connect and reflect on our day. But I've grown to like it more and more. So
yeah.
But yeah, that's simple. The Examine, real simple, sort of similar concept really to the sort of check-in, like noticing your feeling, but hey, what things you notice throughout the day that were good things, you notice the presence of God, where does you see sort of the lack of God, to figuratively say that. So,
yeah. And Sarah, thanks for sharing about how it's hard just to focus and not get distracted by all the things going on when you're trying to do some check-in or the Examine exercises. Yeah. It's like I said, like we're saying, it seems like such a simple exercise, but actually there's a lot to it, and a lot that it stirs up and brings up for us in good ways.
Yeah, and I think sometimes I think sometimes we can get into rhythms that are really great to do, like on a weekly or a daily practice. And other times, like certain times, maybe it's helpful to like, hey, let me step back from this conversation, have a little self check in, like let's examine how I'm doing, right? And that's great to get in that sort of rhythm and know yourself with that. Like Kate just says, when she's in a good place, she journals more, and that helps her get the facts and feelings out too, right? I've always been someone who like I've journaled for certain periods. I used to think I had to journal every day in order to be a good Christian, right? Like, and so I tried it for a long while, and it just got so tedious, and I like just started hating it. So I put my journal down, and then like 2 years later, I come back and like start journaling again. And then I began to realize like, oh, actually, there's like times in my life where it's really helpful to like start journaling and write some things out and get some feelings out. I would do it like writing a letter to God, like, oh God, why this, that, and that, whatever. And then I noticed I'd put it down again for a period of time, and then come back to it. So it's like whatever's happening in my life, I'd start journaling again, right? I think sometimes disciplines can sort of operate like that. So yeah, Judi, do you have any?
No, I love that example of like disciplines don't necessarily have to be the thing you adopt from now until forevermore. It's trying something that's really going to fit what you need and what God's inviting you to for this season, and it might kind of ebb and flow or come and go. I'm the same way about journaling. I want to have like the record, and then I never go back and read my journals. One, because it's horrifying, right? It's like either it's usually like the highs and lows, and that's kind of embarrassing how I felt about them. Yeah.
Yeah, very nice. Yeah, so I think that's what we're doing this summer. That's why we were posing sort of two spiritual disciplines as if they're in tension with one another, but really, actually, there's sort of an ebb and flow, and there's a balance when you find sort of the two things. So tonight's topic is work and rest, and work and rest have an ebb and flow. There are times for work, there are times for rest, and they're both great disciplines, but we have to learn to have a balance and to put them in their places. So yeah, we're going to have a lot more conversation on that too as the night goes on. Yeah.
Well, before we get started talking about work and rest, we're going to invite Kate to tell us a little bit about a cool invitation and opportunities coming our way live.
Hello, I'm Kate, and I've been coordinating some of the other parts of the program. So if you signed up for a career or ethnicity mentor, you'll be getting an email about that this week. I would be so thrilled, and all of our mentors would be so honored if you wrote them back, since I will have done a lot of coordinating to get them to that point. So let's write them back and be excited about that. The next thing I want to talk about is we're going to have a couple of in-person events, though we're wanting to make sure we get the right date for it. Both of these events, one could be in DC and one will be in Baltimore. These are in-person, justice-oriented walking tours. So the idea is for us to get together, spend some time together, probably outside on a Saturday night when it's a little bit cooler and not so hot outside, and just get to know some of the history of our city, and then hopefully just like spend time together, hang out, and get some ice cream or something afterwards, and just get to know each other a little bit more and learn something about the history of the cities that are close to where a lot of us live. But for the DC one, we weren't sure because we had originally scheduled it for this Saturday. We just want to know, is anyone actually going to come if we do it? So we have a couple of options. So it could either be this Saturday, it could be next Saturday. The Baltimore one is for sure July 17th. So I'll put the link to the table of contents, which has all that in it. But Judy's going to put a Zoom poll up just to get a sense of it. Yeah, I am a licensed tour guide, so I promise it will be totally worth it, and I can make sure you know where to park and such. So don't be stressed if those are logistics that are getting in your way. But would love to, yeah, if y'all would just want to fill out the poll, that would be really wonderful, and then we'll take it from there. So hand it back. Oh yeah, and totally anyone can come.
Perfect. I'm going to leave the poll up for just one more moment.
Yeah, Kate does a baller tour, so if y'all can get there, take friends and family, and then all the Smithsonian's in DC are free, so you can hit that afterwards. You can make a whole day out of it. It would be pretty great. It's a far drive for me. It's like 3 hours depending on traffic, so I probably won't be joining, but if anyone is close to DC, can get there by car or a train or something like that, totally worth it. Ooh, I see the poll. Yeah.
Ooh. Looks like we're looking at next Saturday. So we'll change that on there, and I will make sure there are enough people that if 3 of you show up, it'll be worth your time.
That's great.
Thanks, Kate.
Yeah.
We will we'll make sure to send out an email to everybody too with some more information about that so that you have exactly what you need to make that happen. Well, now we're going to keep talking about rest and work. And I am very happy to introduce my friend Alexis to you. Hi, Alexis. Alexis and I have known each other for a long time, since Alexis was a freshman at Loyola. I was her InterVarsity staff, and Alexis always showed up. 2 things I remember about Alexis as a freshman. Sorry if I'm embarrassing you, but she always looked beautiful. No surprise, you can see that, right? But like her earrings matched her tops, and like I just was like, how do you do this? She also always showed up early because she wanted to be available to meet people, to serve. And I just really appreciated that about her and noticed it in her very quickly from the very start of her time as a student. So I don't know if I ever told you that, if we ever talked about that. But what other things you should know about Alexis is that she is on staff with InterVarsity. She staffs Morgan State and University of Baltimore. She's also done a good bit of coaching for the Anchored group, BCM, Black Campus Ministries group at Hopkins this past year. She's also a student working towards her master's degree to become a licensed therapist. And she's also currently actually providing mental health counseling services through an internship in her work at UB. So as you can tell, she is a busy woman, and I'm really grateful, Alexis, that you're here with us tonight. Thanks for being here.
Yes, thank you for having me. And I appreciate all of the things that I didn't know that you just shared. I really did try to get chair committee started at Loyola.
Yeah.
Didn't take off, but it's okay.
But you also stayed around till the end. You helped pull out the chairs and put back the chairs. Yes, without ever breaking a sweat that I could see. So. Well, Alexis, you and I have had some good conversations already on our own about rest and work and how just that can feel really complicated to figure out those pieces. So why don't you share with all of us, like, what comes to mind when you hear the words rest and when you hear the words work?
Yeah, I feel like the first thing that pops to mind, especially with, I would say starting with work, I feel like words like 9 to 5 or job or a to-do list or getting something accomplished or working on a project, being in class or doing homework, writing papers, being productive. I feel stressed even saying it. Yeah, and I think that's initially like when I hear the word work, that is what I think of. But as I've kind of like thought about it more, I think really just with work, it's, I don't know, using the skills and the talents that we have, that God has given us to create or to make change or to provide a service that someone might need. And I feel like the most common one that I hear and think, and all of us probably also think maybe, is making a living, being able to provide financially for oneself or your family or your community. So that's what I kind of think of when I think about work. And I would say for rest, for me, the first thing that comes to mind is sleep. I love to sleep. And so that's always one of my priorities. But I actually, and it's not quite a definition, but there's a post that I saw on Instagram from, it's called the Nap Ministry, that they had posted different synonyms for the word rest. So I'm just gonna actually read them for you all. So rest, synonyms are relax, take a rest, ease up, let up, slow down, pause, take a break, upend, repose, idle, do nothing, take time off, unwind, recharge one's batteries, take it easy, sit back down, lounge, luxuriate, put one's feet up, lie down, go to bed. I feel like that's the one I heard growing up a lot. Just go lay down and go to bed. Take a nap, doze, take a siesta. And so, yeah, I think I like a lot of those like synonyms or definitions of what it means or what it can look like to rest. Yeah, and those are all really great. And I also feel like when we think about rest and work, that they can seem to be polar opposite, or that there is a lot of maybe even tension that comes up like in society when we think about what it means to work and then what it means to rest.
Yeah, as you were like naming those synonyms, I could feel it in my body, right? Like the work ones, I was like, ugh. And all the rest ones, I was like, maybe you all saw it on my face. I was like, oh yeah, that sounds good. Put my feet up. Yeah. So can you say more about that, the tension between resting and working, and yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like our society, and I'll just speak for, US society, culture, highly values work and productivity, and doing that over and over and over constantly. And so for me, and I don't know if you've heard phrases like these, Judi, but I often hear phrases like, I'll sleep when I'm dead. I got to keep grinding, keep hustling. Time is money, got to be productive. If I'm not working, I'm wasting time. I need to be filling my time with something productive, or like rest is for the weak.
I have heard those.
Like
some of them.
I mean, just.
I have heard those. Some of them like coming from my own mouth.
Right. Yeah, me too. And and sometimes I don't even think about what I'm saying, but it's just, I feel like sometimes so ingrained that is like the value and like the culture of, I don't know, our society, that, if you're not working or producing something or furthering your goals, then that means like you're kind of stagnant. And if you're stagnant, then people might assume that like you're lazy or unmotivated. And if you're unmotivated and don't want to do work or produce, then you might have less value or not a valuable contributor to society. And I think that that has been so ingrained like in our society that in the moments when we do choose to take a break or take a vacation, or like even decide to not be accessible to people at all times through like social media and texting, calling, emailing, that like, that's kind of an anomaly, or people might look at you like, oh, like, why aren't you, why? Why aren't you accessible? Like, or when are you coming back to work? Like, how soon can you get back to doing what we need you to do? And so, yeah, that's really hard, just to be, continuing to work and work and work, and there not be a space for you to actually like take a break and rest and like recover. There's never a chance to, or sometimes not a chance to enjoy rest. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I feel that. I feel that like on Saturdays, I try to treat Saturdays as a Sabbath and rest. And it's really hard for me to have a day, like a good rest day, like still has something I accomplished or something. And this one Saturday, I was like really trying to, Sabbath and rest and not produce. But I was like, we have like a lot of ash in the fireplace from winter. I'm just gonna like vacuum it out real fast. It won't really do work. And I did that with like a shop vac, and I didn't have the filter in, and all of the soot blew out the back end all over my living room, like couch, curtains, rug, children's faces. It was horrible. And I was like, okay, this feels like a very clear lesson that I should have just embraced rest in this moment.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah. I am very sorry that happens.
Brought it upon myself,
Yeah, but I mean, even in that, it's like or even in rest, it feels like, well, what can I do that might be restful? Or is there something that or in that free time that I have to rest, like I could do something that's like not work, but also could be work. And how easy it is to just fill our time with things that like could be put aside for the next day. But it's hard. And I also wanted to say and like recognize that I think like even when we think about work and rest and how we want that to be like, or that should be a basic right for us to be able to rest. That I think society has also made it easier for some people to rest than others. And so, I think about people who like aren't able to take a day off because of financial constraints, or not everybody is afforded, like at their place of employment, they might not get PTO, paid time off, or some places might not, pay a livable wage. And so people might have to get 2 or 3 jobs to just make ends meet, and might not be able to afford to like take rest the way that they want to. And so I just wanted to like even name the tension of that, like, and how there is such a need structurally and culturally to change the way that we think about work and rest, that makes it accessible to everybody. Because it shouldn't be a privilege. It should be a right to be able to rest. So
thank you for naming that and helping us not forget that. For some of us, that's harder to forget than for others. But thanks for naming that. So you are a mental health professional. And so from your perspective and from the perspective of mental health and counseling clients that you're talking to, how does rest or lack of rest, how does it impact our well-being as human creatures?
Yes. I mean, rest is incredibly powerful and important and impactful. And there's, countless research that kind of talks about the importance of that rest plays on our physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual well-being. And, when we don't get enough, whether that's sleep or rest or relaxation, our bodies like physically suffer. And when we rest or when we take time to sleep or relax, it really helps give our physical bodies the chance to regroup and restore and repair itself. So I'm thinking, just for example, when we are able to get enough and like as much as possible adequate sleep, while we're sleeping, our bodies tend to repair themselves. So tissue repair, muscle growth, your body is physically healing itself while we're sleeping. And if we don't get enough sleep or rest, it might take longer to be able to for our bodies to do that. I also think about how like resting and sleeping helps with our concentration, our memory. When we've rested, our brains are better able to like take, whether that's a skill or a memory that we have or have recently acquired, whether learning a skill or studying or things like that. It helps move that memory or that skill from like your short-term memory into like longer, more permanent term memory, which then helps you like improve on skills that you're trying to learn, or help, if you're studying for a test, like you're able to recall the information better because your brain has had a chance to like slow down and take a break and take a rest.
So we should not be doing all-nighters.
No, I
Not good for our brain.
not. But I mean, think about even with that, like how you feel after if you pulled an all-nighter, your body is just like feeling like it's on shutdown mode, or like, if you're pulling all-nighter for a paper, if you go to the class that next day, like it's probably going to be really hard to function or concentrate or focus in class or work. And so, I mean, just, physically, like it's important to be able to have our bodies take time to rest. And it also, affects our mental and emotional health as well. When you're getting adequate amounts of sleep and rest, there are, you have improved mood, improved sometimes outlook on life, reduce stress, a lot of just mental and emotional benefits in slowing down and taking a break or sleeping. And just another thing, even physically, like when we're not resting and sleeping, that increases risk for heart disease, high blood pressure, diabetes, weakened immunity, and it can increase like mood fluctuations and increase symptoms of anxiety, depression. So yeah, I mean, sleep and rest and relaxation are extremely important just in our like daily functioning and our well-being.
Yeah, thank you. I need this reminder. So you're not only a mental health professional, but a minister of the gospel and a preacher. So what about like in the Bible, like what's the theological perspective on rest and work?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we really see the foundation of rest and work established in creation. And we find that in Genesis chapters 1 and 2. And we see that, in Genesis 1, God had created and worked for 6 days. And he was very busy. He created land, creatures of the air, the land, the sea, created the vegetation that would grow on Earth, the sun, the moon, the stars, planets, billions of galaxies. And then he worked to create us, people. And what I really love about that is that God, in his creation, like he calls it good, like his work was good. And so he also gives his people, or Adam and Eve, the charge to, this is Genesis 1, but be fruitful, multiply, replenish the earth, subdue it, have dominion. And in Genesis 2, chapter 15, or verse 15, it says, after God had created Adam and Eve, the Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and keep it. And so, we see that work like is a good thing, that it's created and it's used to create, to multiply, to duplicate, maintain, care for, bring things back into restoration. And we're created to do good because like God actually models that for us. So we're empowered to use the gifts and the talents and the skills that he's given us to be able to do the same things that he did. And we also see that like in work, it also goes hand in hand with rest in scripture. So in Genesis chapter 2, verses 1-3, it says like, thus the heavens and the earth were completed in their vast array. And by the seventh day, God had finished the work he had been doing. So on the seventh day, he rested from all his work. Then God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because on it he rested from all the work of creating that he had done. And so I just, like when I read that, it's just always mind blowing, because like this God who is all powerful, cannot physically or physiologically tire or fatigue or become exhausted. Like he chose to rest. And I love that that is the, you know, after modeling working, like rest is the second thing that he models for us in creation. And it's so important that like he had made it into one of the 10 commandments, and that he called it holy. That rest is a holy thing to him. And it's cool that like, you know, it wasn't only the weekly occurrence of on the seventh day, God had told the people of Israel to rest, but that they would also rest on the different festivals that happened throughout the year. And not only did he create people to rest, but also the land. And so like every seventh year, the Israelites would sow, on the sixth year, they would sow new seeds and crops in the ground, but on the seventh year, they wouldn't sow anything. And so they would just eat off of what the land produced. But it gave the land a chance to also rest, which I don't know. I feel like I don't always think about that, like the land actually taking a rest. And I don't feel like I, see that super often, like in our culture is like, oh, we give the land rest too. So yeah, I mean, I just, seeing throughout scripture that like rest is important and work is important, and that those things are good and that they're holy, and that rest is like a foundational thing.
Yeah, I love what you said about like God chose to rest, especially that's gonna like, I think really stick with me, especially in the moments when I feel myself being pulled to like choose to do something else to feel accomplishment or something like that, or to feel productive, that actually like God chose rest. So there's invitation there. Thanks. So like, but how do we do this? Like both kind of spiritually, theologically, like how do we understand work and rest for ourselves? And then how do we do it? Like, I'm like, yeah, well, Adam and Eve didn't have to like pay bills and register for classes, and their chores were like taking care of this little land. They didn't have to like text people back.
That is very true. Yeah, I mean, I think the reminder that rest and work are good things, but also like we don't necessarily need to be always working and always producing and always constantly putting out, without being able to take time to like actually engage in rest. I think it was this year, but back in March, when I was attending our National BCM staff conference, Jonathan Walton, who's also on staff, had kind of given this quote, and I was like, oh, this is great. But he says, to live liberated from the lie that I am valuable because of what I produce. And, like we've been kind of talking about a little earlier, that is often how our society functions, is like, if we're not working or producing, then we aren't perceived as valuable or as valuable. And so sometimes we end up maybe even feeling guilty about taking time to rest and to rest from our work. And so for me, I think I struggle with the feeling of guilt a lot, like when I want to, or when I've been working and wanting to like take a break and take a rest. And I think one thing, and from the like mental health perspective, and when I like am talking with clients, kind of just even thinking about where that thought came from. Like, why is it that we, if this is the case, like, why is it that we feel guilty about resting? Like, where is that thought coming from? Trying to get to like the, like, maybe that original thought of like, where did we first learn that message? Like, what message have we been told, whether at home or, on the news or in society or friends or, social media? What message are they telling us about what it means or why we don't want to rest, or why that's perceived as such a bad thing?
When you say that, it's making me realize, like, when friends ask how I'm doing, I'm usually like, oh, here's all the busy things, or here's all the exhausted. I'm never like, I'm feeling pretty rested. I feel like I mostly slept in and laid around, and like there's only like a very few people in my life that I would even say that to if it were even true, right? Like if I actually chose rest. Yeah. Alexis, I'm feeling very convicted. Please keep sharing.
As I was thinking about all this, I was convicted too. I'm like, oh man, this applies to me as well. But yeah, I mean, yeah, so like, what are those messages that we've been told? And, why is it that, or do we feel, or why do we feel shame about telling people that we have rested, or we did take a break, but like, where's that coming from? The need to be like, oh, like you're kind of sharing, Judi, like I did this. This is what I accomplished or did on my to-do list, or all the ways that I was producing and doing things. And so, yeah, I think just really being able to like identify where that's coming from, because when we become aware of it and when we are able to identify it, then we can begin to like change the way that we think about work and about rest. And when we change how we think about it, like then that kind of begins to change the way that we interact with work and rest, and how we do work and how we do rest begins to change. So yeah, and I also know the importance of like bring that to the Lord too. The messages that we have heard, or the things that we do tell ourselves about rest or work, or the guilt that we feel, like Jesus didn't want for us to feel guilty about working or about resting. And so, bringing that to him and allowing for him to like also begin to help change the way that you perceive work and his good work and his good rest, because those are good, holy, necessary things.
This is making me think that sometimes like my check-in probably needs to be like, I'm feeling restless because I feel like I should be producing something, or that I should, I often just think about like, am I happy or sad or stressed? But there might be more nuance to that. My feelings, thank you for posting the feelings wheel, that might be related to like the rest and the work cycles. Yeah. So, so can you help us get like really, really practical? Like, so how can I think about rest and work, like in a day or a week or an hour?
Sure. Yeah. I think that, well, I guess on a weekly basis, like starting off, definitely recommend Sabbathing. I think it's extremely important to have that day to like recuperate and rest and spend that time with Jesus, or doing something that is life-giving, that is restful, that whether that's engaging creatively, or actually sleeping, is also very important. So yeah, I think being able to even carve out ahead of time, like, this is the day that I'm gonna Sabbath, and trusting that God is gonna take care of all the other things on the to-do list that want to creep in on that day that we really want to do. I am very convicted about that, because it can be really easy to be like, well, let me just do this really quick and then I'll have the rest of the day. But like, trusting that God will take care of the things that we need to get done on those other 6 days. And I think on a like daily level, or daily basis, I think that we can also take rest or moments of rest throughout our day. And so it doesn't necessarily have to be taking a nap, though if you have the space, I recommend it. But it could be, taking time or taking a couple minutes to just like breathe, do some deep breathing, read a chapter of a book that you've enjoyed. I actually have, this was also from the Nat Ministry, that they've kind of like written out a list of what resting can look like. So I can read a couple of them. Yeah. So resting can look like closing your eyes for 10 minutes, meditating on a couch for 20 minutes, daydreaming by staring out of a window, sipping tea before bed, a 20-minute time nap, praying, taking regular breaks from social media, deep listening to a full music album, playing a musical instrument, knitting or crocheting, or doing something that engages with you creatively, whether that's photography or jewelry making or painting, whatever it is that you like to do creatively. But yeah, those were a couple examples that she had given. But yeah, I think just even, especially when it is hard to go through every day, working and doing all the things that need to get done, our days can pass by like, I can't snap, but our days can pass by very quickly. I get made fun of a lot because I can't snap. Our days pass by very quickly. And a lot of times by the end of the day, we are just like done and exhausted. So, what does it then look like to daily take a break, and create that in like our daily rhythm? So like in the morning, if you want, or maybe your quiet time is a time for that kind of rest, or during lunch, like do a couple minute deep breathing exercise, or go on a walk, or put on some music and dance. So yeah, just little things that may not necessarily take like the whole day or take a couple hours, but that you can do that help bring like your energy back up throughout the day, so that you're not waiting all the way until like that Sabbath day, 6 days later, to finally get rest.
Yeah, this is making me realize that a lot of days I like collapse into exhaustion at the end of the day instead of like finding those spaces for rest. And I just have to say, like, it's so crazy that we need like a tutorial, like, here's how to rest. This is like what they teach kids in preschool and kindergarten, right? It's like rest time, head down on your desk. It's crazy that we have to like relearn this, but I think probably most of us do. Yeah.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
oh yeah, that caffeine, man. In fact, I have a friend who was like, "Oh, Judi, what you need to learn is the caffeine nap, where you drink a cup of coffee, then you take a nap, and when you wake up, your caffeine has kicked in." I was like, "This is not no. This doesn't sound healthy." Sorry, now I just told you all about a caffeine nap, but don't try it.
I've never heard that before, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I want to. Well, if there's some more you want to say, I don't want to cut you off, but I think some people probably have some questions. I've seen a few come up in the chat, so let me know if you're ready for that, or if there's more you want to say about. I'll take all the tools you want to give on how to think about rest and work properly.
I think that's pretty much all. Yeah, I think just the reminder that like, oh, actually, let me go back real quick.
Yeah.
So even in, so I was kind of sharing about how, you know, we can sometimes feel guilty about resting, or like have a hard time with engaging with rest. There also might be instances where like we also have a hard time engaging with work, and wanted to like also name that, like, I think just even this year in this pandemic, like motivation is a struggle. I know for me, it was very hard sometimes to get up and like be in front of the computer all day. And so, yeah, I think that it can be hard to also find that motivation to even to work too, or there might be anxiety that might, you know, come into play about future career, or what does work look like, or yeah, like what is it that I want to do with life vocationally. So I just also wanted to name that, like that is also a reality, like as much as we have sometimes a struggle with like engaging with rest, like we might also have it with work too. So I think even just doing a deep dive as to where that's coming from, like what are those thoughts coming from of what's making it difficult to work or want to work, or yeah, what might be hard about that, and how can we also like take that to the Lord too. So I just want to make sure to also name that could be a reality too, that people might be facing.
Yeah. And thank you for the reminder too of like, take it to the Lord. That's I can tend to like get stuck in my own head, like, why am I not doing this right? Or why am I feeling so tired? Or like I can't get my energy or motivation, especially over the past year. Just that feeling of like, I don't want to do that thing. Yeah, so thanks for the reminder of that, like we need to talk to God about that. I'm going to invite Captain to come join us, and I know he and I have had some conversations about rest and work, and yeah, so he also might have some questions for you.
Whoa, this is fun conversation. Gosh, Alexis, you got me reflecting on quite a bit. And you know, I liked your saying like, oh, we got to do a deep dive into like some of our deeper understanding about rest or about work. It's making me think about like some of us, sometimes I have the mindset like I work so that I can rest, or some people say, oh, I rest so that I can work, right? But kind of you're opposing like a whole nother thing, like, hey, let's just dig deeper into that and recognize what's the balance between work and rest. Like even God created work and rest to be in harmony with one another. And like, yeah, so it just got me racing through some of those thoughts, and like, where does that take us if we live in this sort of harmony space? So yeah, another one of my reflections, I was thinking about like the sort of the losing my thought, sorry. But just thinking about like, it sort of seemed like you named several different like types of rest, like, and like Sabbath as a form of rest, and like that might happen more once a week, right? But then even you talked about like daily resting times, or like mini breaks or something, or even like the end of the day, like a decompression time, or some people say, oh, I just want to veg out now, or binge watch Netflix or something. So part of me, I've just realized like sometimes I get into that space, like work real hard for doing something for a day and like feel great about like myself, like, oh, that was hard work. And I just want to like sort of decompress and like zone out and do something sort of mindless. And so then like turn on the Netflix and like 5 shows later, I'm like, oh, I got to go to bed because I need some physical rest now because my eyes are hurting. And I realized like that probably wasn't very good decompression time for me. Like, and I don't know, I started recognizing like that's probably not even rest really, like, because my body didn't like sort of rejuvenate. My mind didn't actually rejuvenate. I just sort of like, yeah, I don't know. So I think you were sort of posing like, hey, what is it? How can you find your sort of rest that works for you? Yeah. So I don't know if I had a question in there. I don't think I did, but thoughts, response. Yeah.
Yeah. Excuse me. I will say, I mean, I think, especially kind of what you're talking about at the end of like how do we, at the end of the day, decompress? I don't think that there's anything wrong with like, if that is a way for you to decompress, like by watching a show, I think that that's also okay. I guess like with that, it would kind of have to be like, well, what are the boundaries around that? Like, I'm just gonna watch one show and then I'm gonna put on like a timer or turn off the go to next episode notification so that it doesn't automatically go to the next episode and then it's 1 a.m. But I think that, it's something that if you enjoy like watching that show, if that's something that like, yeah, that you enjoy doing, like, I don't think that that is a bad thing. I think it's just like how do we do that in moderation? And then is there maybe something like either before or after that you could do that could then be even more maybe restful? So whether that's like,
Yeah,
I don't know, drinking tea right before bed, or reading a book. Yeah, something that like would also maybe like engage your mind and kind of decompressing too. But that isn't like work related or considered like strenuous. Because I've done that. I'm like, there have been a couple things or meetings I've gone to that I'm like, I'm about to check out and I just want to watch a TV show and not think about anything. And that was okay. And that felt restful. But I also didn't like watch it for the rest of the night. So I think just the moderation, and also kind of figuring out like what are other things to do that might be restful as well.
Yeah, I think that's a neat challenge. It's like thinking about what is actually restful for you. Mia brought up rest as decompression versus rest as restoration. She said, seems like there's a difference trying to bring stress down versus trying to rebuild energy. Yeah, I think that's what you're naming, Alexis, too. It's like, and even for each person is trying to name what are those pieces for you that sort of bring back your energy, or I like to think of like what's life-giving versus life-draining, right? Like sometimes work is life-draining and that's a good day of work, but then how do I find that space that brings life back to me? And then what are the good rhythms for that? So Sabbath be like a once a week thing. There could be a monthly thing. What's good to do once a month? Yeah, so I think that's interesting because Judi, when you were talking about your vacuuming story, like oftentimes I've thought of rest as like, let's just cut all this stuff out of my life and like, can't do that, can't do that, can't do this, like, that's work, can't do that. But actually like realize like, hey, actually for me, like sometimes cleaning is really restful. And I love how I feel after cleaning because, all week long, I'm like, let's not do any cleaning. But then at the end of the week, I'm like, let's clean everything up. I'm like, wait, sweet. The house is like clean and my room is nice and bed's actually made, like, so like I get some sort of sense of life from that. Obviously there's a way I could take that too far, like too much cleaning that's starts to be life draining.
Hey, there was another question in the chat, Alexis. Somebody was asking about like, what if you're working a job where you can't really like pause? You can't stop and take a break and rest in the middle of your day. Do you have any suggestions for like, what could you do if you're not able to step away from your work, or like your part of your work is trying to make a quota? So there's that drive to keep going.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's hard. I think so before coming on staff with InterVarsity, I had worked a job that was quota-based, and got to be producing and doing things to make the quota by the end of the day. And so, yeah, I think what I found helpful, even when there wasn't a lot of space to take a break, or I had to be on the road or be doing all the things for the job. I feel like for me, it was a lot of the deep breathing, and like taking 30 seconds or like a minute or 2 minutes to just like stop, and like body relaxation, just close my eyes or deep breathe. That can be something that's like quick, to where, you don't have to step away from your desk, or step away from your job, but that like you could just take those 1 to 2 minutes to just relax your body. And like, it really does help, kind of like help with like your energy level and like relaxing your body again. So be able to like continue engaging in the job. So yeah, like it doesn't have to be like this 30 minutes, I'm gonna go do this, take a 30-minute break to rest. If you're not able to, like, it can be the very short, small, like pockets in between a call, or in between writing an email or something like that, that you can do, that helps. Or like, if you're able to like listen to calming music, like while you're on the job, like that could also be something that is, while you're still working, like you also have that in your ear, like being able to just, as much as you can, engage with like this restful practice. I hope that helps, but I understand it's hard. Like when you have a job that doesn't allow you much time to actually do that. Yeah, it's not easy.
Yeah, thanks for sharing from experience too, your own. Yeah. Well, Alexis, thank you so much. I'm probably going to re-listen to our conversation this week because I wasn't writing down all of your tips, and I really want to, and I want to put them somewhere where, like by my desk probably, where I can remember to like stop during the day, and then maybe a few tips somewhere else, like not at my desk, right? So I can remember on the weekend or Sabbath day, or just in the evenings to actually relax and rest with God. So thank you so much.
Yes,
I'm
thank
blessed
you
by this conversation.
Thank you.
Captain, I was thinking about the one of the habits I have of like that I think is restful, but it's not really restful. Do you ever like play on your phone at bed time? Like, where does your phone live at night?
sometimes in my hand all night long, or like right beside my pillow. My nightstand's right there.
Yeah, man, me too. I like sometimes I fall asleep scrolling on social media, and then I wake up and I'm like, who is that?
Yep.
It's bad. Yeah, like I think it's going to be restful or good, and it's I lose a lot of time.
Yeah, it sometimes like I'll play like mindless games before bed, and Jasmine makes fun of me so much, but yeah, and then I stay up later so often because I'm doing that.
Yeah. Well, I have an invitation for you and for me this week. What do you think about practicing like a discipline of putting our phones down? I know that I certainly need it. I actually have had like timers that I've put on some of my apps. And recently I was like trying to find something and I took the timers off, and now it's like chaos again. Like I'm out of control without the timers. So we're going to invite all of you to join us in actually putting our phones down this week. There's a couple different invitations. Yeah, do you want to say something more about that, Captain?
Yeah, I mean, this sounds like a good challenge, Judy, because I think oftentimes I think about like a lot of times I think about disciplines as like what are the things I need to cut out of my life. But I find it sometimes more life-giving to say what can I add in place of the things I'm cutting out. So I think this task is like, hey, if we just cut out some of our phone usage, we'll have to be creative and think about what do we fill that time with. So that's what I think. I'm excited to hear even next week what people have filled their time with and what did they find. Maybe they found something new or found something they always wanted to do, that just get into scrolling on social media and then never get to it.
Yes. Oh, thank you for that reminder to like not just get rid of the thing, but add something good in that.
Put something in its place. Yeah. So I don't really want to accept your challenge because I think I'm a little bit addicted to my phone, but
Me too.
I think I can.
Okay.
And there's three different parts to that, right? And I guess it's sort of like choose your own adventure.
Yeah, choose your own adventure, talk to your rooted partner, friend, and hold each other accountable or debrief it at the end of the week. We'll ask everybody about it here. Captain, please ask me about it. I'm going to ask you about it.
Yeah, cool. So you got the, intentionally stepping away from your phone, maybe setting it down, walking away, or putting some boundaries up, timers like you were talking about. That's the second option. Or even at bed, maybe just put your phone in the other side of the room or something like that. Yeah, okay, those are 3 good challenges, Judy. I see them. Yeah. That's great. Yeah. And the link, we'll send that out, make sure people get that.
Yeah, great.
If you don't have access to it in the chat. So cool.
Yeah.
So what's next, Judy?
I think we're going to ask our friend John to pray for our evening before we head into breakout spaces to talk to each other. So John, welcome. Thanks for being here with us.
Great. Good to be here. What a great conversation. Alexis, you just brought so many things home so clearly. I remember at a point somebody really, I was deep in ministry with InterVarsity for a number of years, and I still am. At one point, somebody had to confront me and said, John, you seem to be doing things that God is not even asking you to do. And I just had to stop. What is motivating me to work beyond even what God is asking me to do? What was driving me? What was motivating me? And realized, as you said, there was something inside that said, my worth is in my productivity. And somehow I started to find my whole identity around what it meant to always be doing something, even beyond what God wanted done. Just a tremendous reminder on that. Thank you, Alexis. I think the other thing is just reminding us that both work is a gift and rest is a gift, and that God wants us to hold those together in ways I think for me, I'm just learning more about rest all the time as I work even harder in some ways before the Lord. One is to kind of step back from work, whether it, as you said, kind of on a daily basis, but especially learning how to do that on Sabbath, really planning ahead and kind of making a list of things. These are things that I should not be doing on my Sabbath, and kind of asking my wife to hold me accountable on that. And then but the counter thing is, then what do I take on? What do I embrace as kind of good and life-giving on my Sabbath? And that can be done moment by moment as well as on the Sabbath. So thank you for reminding me of that again. I'm also thankful that you identified a couple other things. One is that there are those who face structures and systems in their life that make it almost impossible to do that which we're talking about. They have to work 3 or 4 jobs, not to kind of feel good, but just to survive. And so that really calls us, how do we stand with people who face issues in their life brought on by things such as not having a fair wage, but allows you to kind of step back? How do we begin to stand with people who face abusive and unjust situations? So thank you for calling that out and naming us to begin to walk more deeply into those situations as we ourselves wrestle with work and rest. So let me pray. Our Lord, we come before you giving thanks for this evening. We give thanks for Alexis, for the way you've grown and developed her life to love you and to love others, as you've grown her in wisdom to help us understand some of your realities of the gifts you've given us, both of work and of rest. Lord, help us to begin to embrace both in our lives. Help us begin to walk in the goodness of the work you've given us, but not in a way that kind of then turns it on its head. Help us to realize you are the one in control, that we do not have to keep working because we are the ones in control. We can step back and be reminded of our limits, that you are the one seeking to have us partner with you in your work, and help us be able to have a right perspective even on work. And then help us begin to understand your desire for us to rest and be restored and to recognize and walk with you as the Lord of all. We come to you this evening needing your help to do these things by the work of your Spirit in our lives. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, John. Well, Captain, I think we're ready to head to breakout rooms, talk a little bit with your campus folks.
Excellent.